said it was a mongrel of a government. Today, we have a mongrel of a government. Today, as I issue an accountability statement and performance audit of Mr. William Ruto's administration in the last 4 years, it is not about personalities. It is about evaluating promises with performance, commitments with the delivery, and expectations with outcomes. Patriotic Kenyans, our Constitution recognizes the presidency as an embodiment of national unity, deriving its authority and legitimacy directly from the sovereign power of the people. For this reason, the performance of any administration must always be assessed with honesty, fairness, and fidelity to the facts. Mr. William Ruto premised his manifesto with these words, and I quote, "On August 9, 2022, you'll be called to choose between two roads. One leads to constitutional democracy, institutionalized politics, and opening the doors of opportunity to the many. The other takes us back to the imperial presidency, deeper into personalization of power, and to the inevitable and practicable end of economic apartheid that we see so often around the world. The power is in your hands," close quotes. When he was presenting this choice, little did we know that he was presenting the latter. Today, we have an imperial presidency, economic apartheid, and power under a ruthless dictator. Fellow Kenyans, Mr. William Ruto committed himself to building a secure, just, and democratic Kenya founded on the Constitution and the rule of law. He promised to professionalize the National Police Service, safeguard human rights, protect every Kenyan regardless of political affiliation, strengthen the administration of justice, and ensure the security agencies remained accountable to the Constitution. He further pledged to guarantee every Kenyan the freedoms enshrined in Chapter 4 of the Constitution of Kenya. On this commitment, Mr. William Ruto has done a complete 360-degree about turn on his covenant, and I'll proceed to summarize a schedule of injustices against Kenyans and foreigners. The Republic of Kenya is in a state of lawlessness and anarchy. In 4 years, William Ruto has achieved the unimaginable. There is total breakdown of law and order. Goons have taken over the legal mandate and the role of the National Police Service. The CS for Interior, the PS for Internal Security, who are duty-bound to secure Kenyans and their property, are the key planners and financiers of goons in the country. The rule of law has been suspended in the country. The DCI Director, Mohamed Amin, has been deployed by William Ruto to provide cover-up of extrajudicial killings and abductions in the country. I've just been told that the 2 police officers who were mentioned in the death of Dr. Victoria Mutiso, they were arrested and released on orders of Kipchumba Murkomen. They were never taken to any police station. I've just now, on my way here, been informed that the DCI has facilitated their relocation to our neighboring country, Uganda. Goons have become part of the command structure, rank and file of the National Police Service. It is now common to see goons being escorted by the police to carry out criminal acts against Kenyans. This was evident in the PCA Mweki attack, Kariobangi PCA attack, and ACK Witima Church attack. In fact, Mr. William Ruto carries out his development tours in Nairobi, accompanied by goons. Case in point, it has been witnessed repeatedly. The plan promised that no Kenyan will be evicted without following the due process of law and, where applicable, compensation. Unfortunately, over the last 4 years, Kenyans have not been spared the wrath of Mr. William Ruto's brutal regime and have been violently evicted from their homes and business premises. Mr. William Ruto has established an assassination network in Kenya to deal with political dissent and to assist Kenyans having an issue with one another to eliminate those they don't agree with. For example, in the 2024, during the Gen Z and Sabasaba protests, the government told us that guns were stolen from Kikuyu police station. The truth of the matter is that no guns were stolen. They never left the police station. Those guns were removed from the police records to be available to goons and rogue police officers to carry out illegal attacks and assassination of Kenyans. Look at the classic example of Dr. Victoria Mutiso, who was assassinated on 19th July 2026, and lawyer Matthew Chalo Bob on 9 September 2025 by senior police officers in a feud related to personal property. This heinous murder was planned and executed by police officers from Kikuyu police station. This police station, as I've said, is a crime scene and an assassination empire. This is a situation in 4 years William Ruto has achieved to put up an assassination team available for hire by Kenyans who may want to eliminate other Kenyans. Rachel Wandeto was doused with petrol on the allegation of having a tattoo on her breast. CS Kipchumba Murkomen and IG Douglas Kaja visited her in hospital. William Ruto vowed that the killers would be arrested. They said her death was motivated by certain political leaders. The scheme was planned and orchestrated by CS Murkomen and a nominated senator. Despite William Ruto having instructed that the killers be arrested, 3 months down the line, nobody has been arrested. Nobody will be arrested because she was killed by the police. The Reverend Dumia Kariuki of PCA Nakuru, a vocal church leader, was killed by Nairobi Sierra, a squad formed by Kipchumba Murkomen to intimidate the PCA church to agree to sell their properties in Mombasa, Nairobi, Kajiado, to William Ruto. The U.S. State Department Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor, the Kenya National Commission of Human Rights, and the Independent Medical Legal Unit have documented over 700 cumulative cases of extrajudicial killings and forced disappearances across Kenya since late 2022 when William Ruto came to power. And with, of course, notable surge tied to the 2024 Gen Z protests, where 60 young boys and girls were killed. Mr. William Ruto, it is also important to note that alcohol and drug substance abuse is on a record high in the country. And the climax was when William Ruto appointed 2 known drug barons into his cabinet. William Ruto has therefore deliberately allowed the menace to grow in sections of the country that are not politically aligned to him. While serving as the country's deputy president, I ensured and chaired a multi-agency stakeholder meetings across country to exhaustively examine the root causes, extent, and impact of this growing disaster, with an aim of offering solutions. The initiatives were aimed at informing major government policy, measures, and prescribing interventions and actions to address alcohol and drug demand reduction, supply suppression, and harm reduction. Under my leadership then, I strengthened the intergovernment collaboration and coordination in fighting alcohol, drugs, and substance abuse. I proposed several amendments of national and county legal provisions on alcohol and drug control, coordinated and multidisciplinary licensing regime of alcoholic outlets where all stakeholders were involved, and proposed the establishment of county treatment and rehabilitation centers. I held high-level engagement sessions with the judiciary to fast-track alcohol, drug, substance abuse matters before then. William Ruto's 4 years have achieved unwarranted, excessive availability of drugs to our young people, killing them and leaving others as zombies. I'm confident that on August 10, 2027, we will revisit this program and eradicate this vice in totality. The following are some of Kenyans who have been abducted and disappeared recently. Mark Million Carrier, he was abducted in Nairobi. Michael Olo, abducted in Nairobi. Families wept in the Milimani High Court demanding his release. His last location was along Kagudo Road. Evans Omondi, abducted alongside Olo and Carrier. Abdulaziz Duba Molu, alias Zizo, abducted in Kiamaiko on June 23, 2026 by armed individuals in civilian clothing and police uniforms. Davis Lichuma, a rights activist seized by the masked operatives outside Parliament, later traced to a hospital heavily battered. Omwancha Clifford Evans, listed among the recent abductees by local human rights groups. Manyura Morisori Douglas, still missing following a wave of clandestine security enforcement operations. Jimmy Mtava Mwanzi, abducted in Mlolongo, not seen to date. He was abducted at the instructions of DIG Langat. Dennis Chege, an activist who was said to be involved in the Gen Z protests, vanished and remains completely unaccounted for to date. Brian Stigo, a Nakuru fisherman, who mysteriously went missing in 2022 under similar contested operations at Lake Nakuru National Park. The plan promised Kenyans that the National Coroner Service Act of 2017 will be amended to establish the Coroner General's Office. The objective and aim of this amendment was to remove the burden of investigating suspicious and police action deaths from regular police channels and DCI. Further, the amendment of the Act was aimed at removing potential conflict of interest and ensuring absolute transparency in handling and explaining deaths and forced disappearances or fatalities resulting from the law enforcement operations. 4 years later, this promise has not been fulfilled. National Coroner Service Amendment Bill 2026 was officially published in the Kenya Gazette on April 16, 2026, and received by the Directorate of Legal Services in July 2026. It is currently at the introduction and pre-reading stage in the National Assembly, awaiting formal first reading and committal to the relevant departmental committee. Mr. William Ruto has also facilitated acts of transnational repression against foreigners in Kenya. More specifically, on July 24, 2024, 36 Ugandans, members of a Ugandan opposition political party, as part of a joint Kenya-Ugandan Security Agency operation, and were forcibly returned to Uganda. On October 18, 2024, 7 Turkish asylum seekers were abducted in Nairobi by masked men. Kenya later confirmed it forcibly deported 4 of them to Turkey in a joint security operation, citing bilateral ties, drawing severe condemnation from the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and Human Rights. On November 16, 2024, Kiza Bisinje, leader of another Ugandan opposition party, was kidnapped by Ugandan agents while visiting Nairobi. Kenya government officials claimed they were unaware of the abduction, but the Ugandan authorities maintained it was a coordinated action between the two governments. Tanzania journalist and human rights activist Maria Sarangi was on Sunday, 12 January 2025, almost abducted here in Nairobi. Prominent Zimbabwean constitutional lawyer and human rights defender Brian Kagoro was detained and deported from Kenya on February 22, 2026. Intercepted by immigration and national intelligence officers at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi, he was held for over 10 hours and subsequently put on a flight back to Johannesburg, South Africa. In March 2026, 2 officials from the China Civil Engineering Construction Corporation were deported from Kenya amid a high-stakes dispute that arose in Kenya shillings 30 billion Kenya Railway City tender. Upon seeking a statutory review of the procurement process, William Ruto and Kipchumba Murkomen deported the complainants' local agents, clearing the way for their preferred entity, China Road and Bridge Corporation, CRBC, a company that has bagged procurement tenders worth 1.2 Kenya trillion since 2022 when William Ruto came to power. China Road and Bridge Corporation is the international conduit for corrupt proceeds in Kenya under the personal and direct supervision of William Ruto. I must say Kenyans are not safe, our children are not safe, investors are not safe, tourists are not safe, no foreigner is safe. And I must say, foreigners, investors, tourists, your own security starts with you. I ask the members of our development partners and foreign embassies accredited to Kenya to ensure that their staff and citizens are safe within the boundaries of Kenya. On protecting the liberties enshrined in our Constitution, William Ruto has breached the freedom of expression in Article 33 and the freedom of media in Article 34, Constitution of Kenya 2010. On 26 June 2026, 4 police officers from the dreaded Killer Squad, armed with AK-47 assault rifles, attempted to abduct the Standard Group Nakuru-based associate editor, Mr. Alex Kiprotich. This attack is a defiance to truth and total on the freedom of media, as stipulated in Article 34 and 35 of our Constitution. In the last 4 years, several media houses, including the Nation Media Group, the Standard Media Group, MediaMax Network, and several journalists were subjected to online campaign and disinformation campaign by the government of William Ruto. Reports show that 24 cases of violence towards journalists were recorded during the 2024 Gen Z protests. The Kenya Kwanza Covenant pledged to root out corruption, guarantee financial autonomy for key oversight bodies, and enforce Chapter 6 of the Constitution of Kenya on leadership and integrity. Mr. William Ruto has broken this covenant to the people of Kenya and instead orchestrated outright plundering of the country's resources for his personal benefit and enrichment. On 31st December 2024, Mr. William Ruto was ranked as the second most corrupt president in the world by the Organized Crime and Reporting Project. Transparency International Corruption Perceptions Index ranked Kenya number 130 out of 108 countries globally, with a score of 30 out of 100, reflecting persistent stagnation and public mistrust. Mr. William Ruto's administration has entrenched corruption as a way of life, and it remains systematic, pervasive, and deeply rooted in public service delivery and high-level governance. Mr. William Ruto's Western Hotel has been the leading recipient of government hospitality and catering tenders, securing 37 public contracts valued at hundreds of millions for the period ending June 2026. Contracts have come from state corporations, state departments, and county assemblies. It is clear that William Ruto is in competition with local entrepreneurs, where he flexes his executive powers and gives priority registration that enriches himself and his cronies at the expense of other hardworking Kenyans. I want to bring to the attention of the people of Kenya some of the biggest scandals that we have witnessed in the last 4 years. In the current financial year, State House budget has grown from Kenya shillings 8 billion to 18 billion Kenya shillings, an increment of over 10 billion Kenya shillings. These are the funds that are used to bribe the people of Kenya. And lately, sheikhs, private security officers, village elders, teachers, chiefs, etc. Under the e-Citizen, a special audit report by the Office of the Auditor General exposed major financial and governance weaknesses, noting that over Kenya shillings 11 billion in collections lacking clear documentation or routed through non-designated accounts alongside irregular payments to private entities. The functionless chief system was procured at a cost of 104 billion Kenya shillings, and an independent assessment of this system shows that it is worth 800 million, leaving theft and plunder of public resources of 103 billion Kenya shillings. SHA makes a loss of 6 billion shillings a month. Hospitals and faith-based organizations and counties are owed 105 billion to date. As I've said before, SHA is insolvent and everybody knows it. On the affordable housing program, the Office of the Auditor General reports that have flagged major legal and operational risks regarding fund utilization, including untraceable international development loans, low fund absorption, and missing land ownership documentation for ongoing projects. Further, the levies deducted from Kenyan payslips are invested in a third-party financial service firm licensed by the Capital Markets Authority. How are their fees determined? How much has been paid out to date? What is his association with William Ruto? On the restoration of Nairobi rivers, Mr. William told Kenyans that on December 25, that Nairobi River will have fish. Can members of the press visit this river tomorrow and bring us one piece of fish? This government committed itself to protecting public assets, strengthening governance, eliminating corruption, and ensuring that public resources would be managed solely in the interests of the people of Kenya. It promised a government founded on transparency, accountability, and prudent stewardship of national resources. On the divestiture of the Kenya pipeline, has Kenya surrendered its ownership and control to a neighboring country? What was the rationale of forcing Kenyan state corporations to invest public funds in a public entity? Who is the mysterious lead transaction advisor, stroke investment banker that was the face of the IPO? How did he acquire his Kenyan citizenship, and whose interest does he represent? Mr. William Ruto and Senator Aaron Cheriot must come clear on their relationship with this mysterious dual citizen investment banker. On the sale of government's equity stake in Safaricom to Vodacom at 204 billion Kenya shillings, it was a ripoff. Each share was grossly undervalued at 34 Kenya shillings. Why didn't William Ruto allow the use of an open price discovery, or even better, allow a regulated cooperative and SACCO fraternity with over 1 trillion in deposits at the end of December 2025 buy out this stake? Aren't the cooperative society members hardworking, deserving Kenyans? What happened to Buy Kenya, Build Kenya? Or is it Buy Kenya, Build Ruto? Other national assets, such as the new KCC, Kenya Ports Authority, and Kenya Airways, have been strategically targeted for sale. What is the rationale of selling our heritage? Had hard-working Kenyans remit over 100 billion Kenya shillings monthly to the National Social Security Fund, NSSF. These funds now have been targeted for budgeted corruption and ring-fenced to fund infrastructural development projects, such as the Mau Summit Road, Twin Towers Commercial Building, and the Bomas of Kenya International Conference Center. Is this really prudent? Are our pensioner funds safe? What is the role of the mysterious dual citizen investment banker in structuring the fund management contracts issued by NSSF? The Communication Authority of Kenya, Universal Service Fund, has recently approved the transfer of 45 billion Kenya shillings to the National Intelligence Service, allegedly for the procurement of an ICT system whose market value is only 2.5 billion. This approval was given by the then chairperson of the Communications Authority in the hope that her business loan would be repaid from the proceeds. As explained earlier, China Road and Bridge Company, CRBC from China, is the major conveyor of corruption in Kenya and is the recipient of projects worth 1.2 trillion, namely the Naivasha, Malaba, SGR, Mombasa SGR, JKI modernization projects, Talanta Stadium, Southern Bypass, Eastern Bypass, Western Bypass, Makuba Bridge, and Bomas of Kenya, among others. Patriotic Kenyans, over the last 4 years, Mr. William Ruto has systematically eroded the values, principles, and institutional structures of Kenya's public service that was built to ensure an efficient, ethical, and representative government workforce. Today, the public service is demotivated and has taken a back seat, as William Ruto single-handedly runs the operations of government without any professional input from our dedicated civil servants. No wonder government programs are launched and they are after repackaged for another launch. Dear Kenyans, the Church of Christ has been a major casualty of William Ruto's deception. On 5th May 2022, he executed a charter between the churches and the Kenya Kwanza Coalition. He committed that his administration would protect the freedom of worship in Kenya and respect the church as a societal partner in national development. Fast forward to 2026, he has introduced punitive legislation through the Religious Organization Bill 2024, aimed at controlling the activities of the church. He has also increased fees required to carry out official activities. Who can forget the 2026 brutal murder of Reverend Julius Dumia of Nakuru PCA? Who will ever forget the attacks on Wetima ACK Church? Who will ever forget the attack of All Saints Cathedral? On 4th October 2020, William Ruto, then Deputy President, was expected at AIPCA Church in Keno. Police officers tear-gassed the church. At the time, William Ruto said, the Jubilee administration is a product of kneeling and prayer before many altars in Kenya. It cannot be the same administration is now going to tear-gas the church and disgrace our altars in Kenya. William Ruto then said. Today, as president, the church is a serious attack. He has taken the attack to the church a notch higher, beyond tear gas, live fire, torching of vehicles, and a clear intention to kill at the altar. He has completely betrayed the Church of Christ. This cannot be forgotten. Mr. William Ruto has completely betrayed the Church of Christ. That prayed him into government. The economic burden on ordinary Kenyan worker has also increased. The Federation of Kenyan Employers has also reported that in 4 years, a number of local and international companies either closed operations or exited the Kenyan market. This includes CMC Motors, Base Titanium, Nakumat, Twiga Industries, Dilaru, Jumia Foods, and Hilton Hotels. Today, households continue to experience severe financial squeeze due to cumulative tax charges, high utility costs, transport costs, and a stagnant job market that has limited formal opportunities. While in office as Deputy President of the Republic, I championed the restoration and the recognition of prior learning program as an avenue to increase opportunities and income for non-certified but skilled Kenyans that are the providers of goods and services that we consume as a nation. Further, I developed a framework of cooperation and engagement between Nairobi City County Government, Nairobi County Traders, KRA, Anti-Counterfeit Authority, and the Kenya Bureau of Standards. The objective of the framework was to A, provide a platform for resolution of disputes arising out of trading activities and the informal sector, foster goodwill, cooperation, and consultation between the parties, recognize the importance of collaboration in achieving shared goals in the informal sector, and promotion and improvement of the well-being of traders and their micro, small, medium enterprises. What happened? As soon as I left office, William Ruto and Nairobi City Governor Johnson Sakaja abandoned this framework. You all remember that on 8th August 2022, a liter of super petrol retailed at 159 shillings. A liter of diesel retailed at Kenya shillings 140. As we speak today, the price of super petrol is 214 Kenya shillings and diesel 222.86 for a liter of diesel, representing an increase of 34.05% and 59.18% respectively. These increases have been contributed to higher transport costs, increased food prices, and a greater pressure on household incomes. Kenyans will recall that on April 2026, I exposed the opaque nature of the government-to-government framework and detailed its contribution to an increased landed cost of fuel products. The whole scheme and con game were nothing like G to G. It is government route. What I'm saying in a nutshell is that the high cost of fuel has nothing to do with international prices. It has everything to do with business interest of William Ruto, where he is a key player of oil importation and distribution in the country. The average Kenyan worker loses between 45% and 50% of their monthly earnings that are deducted through punitive levies and taxes leaving significantly less disposable income for their households. For example, a teacher in Wajir earning a gross salary of 50,000 in 2022 took home approximately 42,000 Kenya shillings. Today, under William Ruto, the same teacher who is making 50,000 takes home 38,000, while facing substantially higher food, fuel, transport costs, reduced school capitation, and increased challenges in accessing health care. Coupled with the rising cost of petroleum products, the Kenya Kwanza covenant to put money into people's pocket is nothing but a pipe dream. If anything, Mr. William Ruto has achieved the complete opposite and has taken money out of Kenyans' pockets, leaving them with a reduced net disposable income. This covenant was central to the plan to improve the lives of Kenyans. As the party leader of DCP, I once again called on this government to cushion the payslip by suspending the affordable housing levy and reducing the payee tax burdens. This, together with the review of petroleum price framework, taxes charged will give Kenyans an increased net income. A punitive and unpredictable taxation regime is one of the principal causes of the high cost of living. William Ruto should lead from the front and actualize his promise made in the wake of the 2024 Gen Z protest to reduce government recurrent expenditure. State House does not need 18 billion Kenya shillings for 12 months. These funds could be used to subsidize rising fuel and food costs for the benefit of Kenyans. Or better still, these funds can be used to ensure farmers in arid and semi-arid lands have access to clean water for domestic purposes, farming, and for their livestock. Patriotic Kenyans, Mr. William Ruto promised to build a disciplined, transparent, and accountable government founded on prudent public finance management, constitutionalism, and the rule of law. He pledged to reduce the cost of government, manage public debt responsibly, eliminate corruption, strengthen institutions, and uphold the Constitution while protecting the rights and freedoms of every Kenyan. 4 years down the line, the government introduced new tax measures, expanded statutory deductions, implemented changes to public finance management, and undertook toxic borrowing to finance government programs. It also introduced reforms affecting public institutions and the administration of government. Instead of easing the financial burden on citizens, the tax burden has increased significantly. Households have experienced reduced disposable income while facing higher prices for food, fuel, electricity, and other basic commodities. On the debt management, why is this regime in open violation of Article 211 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 and Section 15(2)(c) of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 that strictly prohibits the financing of recurrent expenditure using debt? Looking back, we know that the Grand Coalition government borrowed an average of 200 billion shillings annually. The Jubilee government of Uhuru Kenyatta borrowed an average of 700 billion shillings annually. This regime of William Ruto borrows an average of 1.4 trillion annually with no corresponding development. Since August 2022, Kenya's debt growth has entered a dangerous pattern of continuous triple-digit or near triple-digit expansions. As we speak today, every citizen of Kenya and every child born as of this morning has a debt of Kenya shillings 221,000. This country has a debt of 13.02 trillion, up from Kenya shillings 8.6 trillion in August 2022 when William took over. Mr. William Ruto has borrowed in excess of 5 trillion over the last 4 years. This regime, on a borrowing spree, borrows an average of 3.5 billion Kenya shillings daily and steals 3 billion shillings daily. Why borrow to steal? On average, this government steals from the people of Kenya 125 million shillings every hour. Calculated, this government is stealing every minute 2 million shillings from the people of Kenya. Dear Kenyans, The National Treasury has delayed disbursing the equitable share of revenue to counties. These cash flow delays have routinely stalled county operations, delayed staff salaries, and inflated pending bills to over 156 billion, despite legal mandates requiring timely monthly transfers. Misplaced priorities such as funding State House budget by 10 billion, building state lodges and airstrips has caused cash flow constraints. The strengthening, devolution, and improving the timely disbursement of funds was at the core of the Kenya Kwanza Covenant with the people of Kenya. Once again, this promise has been broken. Patriotic Kenyans, ladies and gentlemen, measured against the promise to lower the cost of living, improve access to affordable credit, and strengthen small businesses, the evidence presented suggests that many Kenyans have yet to experience the relief that was promised. Mr. William Ruto made an ambitious commitment to the people of Kenya. The promise was to place young people at the center of Kenya's economic transformation and restore hope to millions of young people seeking meaningful work. The population of Kenya is 75% youthful. The African Union has long urged African countries to harness this demographic dividend by investing in young people. It is therefore fitting that we assess one of the administration's flagship commitments, expanding credit opportunities to Kenyans' youth. The Kenya Kwanza administration promised to establish a 50 billion hustler fund to provide affordable credit to mama mboga, boda operators, mkokoteni operators, and other small-scale entrepreneurs. This commitment was to ease financial constraints, promote enterprise, and improve the livelihoods of ordinary Kenyans. Mr. William Ruto established the Hustler Fund, whose head and tail cannot be traced. As it were, the financing programs intended to support micro, small, and medium enterprises. The Hustler Fund is said to have disbursed 87 billion Kenya shillings to 28 million people. What a paradox. What a lie. I am yet to hear of anyone Kenyan saying that they have expanded their business courtesy of the Hustler Fund. Limiting the disbursement of funds to registered cooperatives would have probably made a greater economic impact and would have reduced the mobile loan default rate that is very high. I have raised fundamental questions on the effectiveness of the Hustler Fund in meeting its stated objectives. The truth of the matter is the high rate of loan defaults and low loan disbursements, in many instances 500 shillings, are insufficient to establish or grow a sustainable business venture anywhere in the country. This is simply a lost cause and was a fraud. 4 years ago, Kenyan women were promised dignity, economic empowerment, and their welfare. 4 years later, the women continue to experience economic hardships occasioned by a high cost of living, increased medical and education costs, and an unsustainable credit framework under the Hustler Fund and Women Enterprise Fund. The discontinuation of projects such as Linda Mama and Edu Afya have increased the cost of assessing healthcare and education services to women and their families. Mr. William Ruto has ignored Justice John Mativo's 2017 ruling and the former Chief Justice Maraga 2020 advisory to enact a legislative framework and implement the 2/3 Jeta rule despite having a parliamentary majority. Patriotic Kenyans, the Kenya Kwanza commitment was to turn the housing challenge into an economic opportunity. They promised to build 250,000 houses every year. This was the promise. However, 4 years later, Mr. Ruto has fashioned and turned this into a conduit to steal public land and be the sole supplier of construction inputs, cement, steel, tiles, nails, and MDF panels that manufactures factories he has bought and acquired. The Affordable Housing Fund has collected over $1 billion since its inception. The State Department of Housing and Urban Development has conveniently ensured a low absorption rate of roughly 25% due to the staggered nature of construction phases and investments of proceeds in treasury bills, bonds through CDN Bank. CDN Bank Syrian Bank is today classified as Tier 2 medium-sized bank. It has graduated from Tier 3 status after achieving a market share of over 1% driven by deposits mobilized from government of Kenya state corporations, Social Health Authority, Nairobi City County Government, and the Affordable Housing Fund levies. Syrian Bank is worth 95 billion in asset value, Kenya shilling 74 billion in customer deposit, and a reported 1.7 billion net profit in the year ending 2025. Compare this sudden change in fortunes with the 2022 financial year results. This bank had 42 billion Kenya shillings in assets, 30 billion in customer deposit, and a reported loss in the financial year ending 2022. Since William Ruto bought it, you can see the transformation. This housing scheme is nothing but a personal business that guarantees the exclusive single source offtake of steel, MDF panels, nails, iron sheets, tiles, cement by factories owned by William Ruto and his allies. The levy proceeds are the reason why Syrian Bank deposits have increased tenfold for the 4 years. If it were a genuine program, why is it being forced down citizens' throat? There was no promise to raise the payslip of the Kenyan worker in the name of a punitive housing levy. Private businesses must be left to do their work as the government does its work. It's important that the workers of Kenya know that monies deducted from their payslip is invested in Syrian Bank owned by William Ruto, who is collecting the profit. In my view, and as expressed before, the affordable housing scheme should be made optional to Kenyans to allow them to participate at their own free will. Fellow Kenyans, Mr. William Ruto had promised that within 30 days of his presidency, he would establish a quasi-judicial public inquiry to establish the extent of cronyism and state capture in the nation and make recommendations. Unfortunately, over the last 4 years, Mr. William Ruto himself has captured the state. He has focused on centralizing control of independent constitutional commissions, state entities, public sector procurement, and unwarranted sale of strategic national assets. All these measures are aimed at achieving the sole objective of enriching William Ruto at the expense of 55 million Kenyans. It should be noted that William Ruto has achieved the milestone of being certified as a US dollars billionaire in a record 4-year courtesy of looting Kenyan public coffers. Mr. William Ruto's 4 years in office has accomplished a mission of driving Kenyan entrepreneurs out of business. Contractors are out of business. Traders are out of business. William Ruto has captured all businesses and he is in competition with the Kenyans that he leads. He has used his office to flex muscles on traders. Where he has not pushed, his cordial CRBC has come in. Mr. William Ruto has investments in virtually every sector of Kenya's economy, namely banking and finance through Syrian Bank, investment banking through Rock Investment Bank, a CMA license issued in 2026, and is the fund manager of NSSF and PSSF pension funds, insurance through Amaco, capital markets through ZD platform, hospitality through Weston Hotel and Ritz Carlton in Amara, cement through the various companies that he bought, including Baburi and East African Portland Cement, betting through SportsPesa, Sportbet and Betika, aviation through Kwale Island Development, healthcare through Nairobi West Hospital, telecommunication through East African Device Assembly Limited, oil and energy through Gulf Energy and oil marketing companies, energy gas through Taifa Gas, construction, farming, currency security, he has recently bought Daru, transport, he has even gone into the matatu business. He now has over 100 matatus in Nairobi, agriculture, poultry, minerals, gold prospecting in Aboseli, Logorian, Transmara, DRC, including in Darfur. Literally, all business people in Kenya have been driven out of business by William Ruto. The Parliament of Kenya has failed in its legislative oversight and representative role. Its members, except the few who hang around with me, are on record boasting how they are paid for everything that they pass in Parliament. I must remind all parliamentarians that they are accomplices to criminal acts under the archaic leadership of the UDA with winger Moses Wetangula. The National Assembly is one of the major causes of the suffering of Kenyans by passing bad laws like the Finance Bill 2024, whose provisions were later sneaked through amendments and omnibus legislation. Mr. Williams Ruto's attempt over the last 4 years to undermine the office of the Auditor General has been frantic and uncalled for. He now wants the Auditor General arrested for resisting theft of public funds. The people of Kenya will not allow it. Mr. William Ruto has made IPOA non-functional in the last 4 years. An attempt was made through a Gazette notice to put it under the Ministry of Interior so that they can cover all the crimes against Kenyans and the police. Fortunately, our court stopped this covert mission. Historically, IBC has been an institution under low public trust. It is in the public domain that IBC, as currently constituted, enjoys low public trust among Kenyans. The threat by the chairman Ethocon to suspend or allow by elections if there is violence is a clear indication that he is under manipulation by William Ruto. The Central Bank of Kenya is one of the most critical government institutions we have. However, through the National Assembly, the CBK Act was amended recently to allow the purchase of gold and other precious metals. This is gold bag season 2 loading. Kenyans should be alarmed that CBK has not received currency supplies from Germany for 4 months after it became apparent that the government wanted money diverted to Mombasa and the German suppliers were reluctant. We have also noted the recent changes in the ownership of Delaru, Kenya, and Kenyans are keenly watching the space to establish whether they want to print currency for bribing voters in the forthcoming general election. Allow me to give 2 practical examples of how William Ruto has captured institutions. I'll use IPOA and KWS as examples. At IPOA, we have over 1,000 cases of police excesses that have been reported over the last 4 years by the people of Kenya. Only about 10 cases have found their way to court. Mr. William Ruto has deliberately slowed down the activities of IPOA. Some few days ago, the Amboseli National Ecosystem the Amboseli National Park ecosystem, 15 elephants died and some lions died later. We were cheated that they were died through suspected cyanide poisoning from pesticides. Tell the Kenyans the truth, Mr. William Ruto. Doing cyanide lynching to extract good prospects. And this warning goes to the people of Ikolomani in Kakamega, where Mr. William Ruto is eyeing your gold deposits. Be very careful. Again, the CS for Health issued Gazette notice number 11492 on 30th July 2026 on the mandatory inbound travel health insurance for tourists traveling to Kenya to have travel insurance in Kenya. We know the reason. This is because goons are after tourists in the country, and now they want to force an insurance policy down their throats. To demonstrate what professionals in this government feel and go through, allow me to quote Professor Njogona Ndungu, the former National Treasury Cabinet Secretary, during a development forum in Sweden. And I quote, "The capacity to do the right things exists, but is overshadowed by institutional failure, where someone seeks to overrun institutions. The current president is overrunning all institutions, leading to conformity driven by fear within these institutions," close quote. What is this if not impunity of the highest order? Patriotic Kenyans, historically, land is one of the most emotive issues in Kenya. Mr. William Ruto has promised to settle all historical land injustices in Kenya and resettle millions of squatters across the country. Unfortunately, he has scored the lowest in this matter and created many war fronts on the land question. Over the last 4 years, William Ruto and his cronies have been involved in an historic high-level grabbing of land and misuse of public lands. For instance, 2,800 acres have been grabbed by Ruto and his cronies in Kebiko, Kajiado. 6,000 acres of land in Owasso Kedong in Suswa has been grabbed. 5,000 acres of land, or Kyobo in the Masai Mara, has been grabbed. 1,000 acres of land for Puko and Limanet within Narok Township has been grabbed. Over 7,000 acres of land of Olokuto adjudication section in Narok North. Kehoto land, about 300 landowners risk being thrown out of their 700 acres of land. Davivi land in Naivasha has been grabbed by William Ruto. He has put up a home and he is growing wheat and maize in the farm. Banita settlement scheme, 14,000 acres of land have been grabbed. Olongai land, about 167,000 people are at the risk of eviction as this land is being grabbed. Egerton University land, Oscar Sudi, Samburu, and William Ruto have grabbed 2,000 acres of land meant for the university where they are doing wheat farming. Patriotic Kenyans, health has long been one of Kenya's foremost national priorities. Building on the gains made at Kenya Vision 2030, the Kenya Kwanza administration committed itself to delivering universal health coverage by guaranteeing every Kenyan access to affordable quality health care. The plan pledged to realize the constitutional right to health through a reformed national health insurance scheme founded on the principle of leaving no one behind. To implement this commitment, the government replaced the National Health Insurance Fund, NHIF, with a failed and fraudulent scheme called SHA that has left millions of Kenyans on their own. The discontinuation of Linda Mama and Edu Afia on December 31st, 2023, has left significant gaps in healthcare coverage. In 2022, Edu Afia provided medical cover to 3.4 million secondary school students at an annual cost of 3.2 billion. Today, approximately 4.1 million secondary school students no longer enjoy that medical cover, leaving parents to bear the full cost of treatment. Mr. William Ruto had committed to addressing the inequities in Kenya's education system so as to level the playing field for all children irrespective of their background. He further committed to equitable universal basic education defined as 12 years of schooling. He further committed himself to protecting and strengthening the gains made under free primary education and free day secondary education, while ensuring that every Kenyan child had access to quality, affordable, and equitable education. He also pledged to strengthen higher education financing and invest in the nation's human capital. The William Ruto government inherited landmark education reforms introduced by previous administrations. Free primary education launched in 2003, free day secondary education introduced in 2018, that had significantly expanded access to education for millions of Kenyan children. The commitment was not only to preserve these gains, but to build upon them by ensuring adequate capitation, sustainable financing, and improved access to quality education for all. In the words of the third president of the Republic of Kenya, the best president we have ever had, Mzee Mwai Kibaki, and he said, and I quote, "Education is the ultimate means of ensuring an equitable society. Equitable education ensures that every child has a chance to fulfill their potential and rise to the highest level of accomplishment," close quote. 4 years later, the government has caused irreparable instability and confusion in the educational sector. The gains made by the previous administration under free primary education and free day secondary education have been eroded to dust. Secondary school parents now shoulder substantially higher education costs, while the level of government capitation has failed to keep pace with inflation and rising operation costs. The capitation rate established in 2017 was 22,000 per student. However, today's schools receive only 9,000 per student during the previous financial year, creating a significant funding gap. Our public universities are facing unprecedented financial distress. University debt has increased from 60 billion in August 2022 to approximately 100.3 billion Kenya shillings, representing an increase of Kenya shillings 40.3 billion or about 67% increase. As a result, many institutions are experiencing severe financial challenges that will affect the delivery of quality education. Further, we have had 2 university financing models in 2 years. Measured against the commitment to strengthen education, protect free basic education, and improve access to higher education, the evidence presented suggests that the sector has experienced significant setbacks, placing greater financial pressure on families and creating uncertainty for learners and institutions alike. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. William Ruto pledged to invest 250 billion Kenya shillings into the agricultural sector to shift the country from food security to surplus production. Recognizing its strategic importance, he pledged to transform the agricultural sector by increasing productivity, improving farmer incomes, and revitalizing key value chains. The administration committed itself to revamping underperforming export crops, expanding emerging high-value crops, strengthening the tea value chain, supporting food security, and promoting agro-processing as a driver of economic growth. Despite the commitments made, our farmers have experienced increased economic hardship. Net incomes have reduced due to increased cost of inputs, higher taxation rates, high transport and distribution costs due to reclassification of VAT status. Agriculture continues to receive approximately 2% of the national budget, significantly below the African Union 10% target under the Maputo Declaration. The tea sector has faced considerable challenges over the past 4 years. This is due to the deterioration of Kenya's economic and diplomatic relations with Sudan. Historically, one of the largest buyers at the Mombasa tea auction. Sudan's annual consumption of Kenyan tea declined from approximately 10.7 million kilograms to about 1.7 million kilograms, leaving substantial volumes of tea unsold. But why has this happened? Mr. William Ruto's appetite for business and money has failed Kenya. His close association with Sudan's RSF warlord, Mr. Hemeti, in illegal trade of gold in exchange for weapons, has reversed the gains we have made. These internationally sanctioned war criminals live in Kenya under state protection and have been issued with diplomatic passports and ID cards by Kipchumba Murkomen. U.S. Senator Jim Risch, chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, while noting Kenya's NATO ally status, criticized William Ruto during a May 2025 hearing. Senator Risch questioned Kenya's loyalty following its facilitation and hosting of Sudan's paramilitary rapid support forces, RSF. Rice farmers in Ahero, West Kano, Bunyala, Bura, and Mwea have also faced significant challenges. Although rice was identified as a strategic import substitution crop, import volumes approaching 1 million metric tons annually have depressed local paddy prices, leaving many farmers with unsold stock. Just recently, on 6 July 2026, William Ruto authorized the gazettement of duty-free importation of 490,000 metric tons of grade 1 milled white rice before 30th November, June 26. It estimates that this represents a missed economic opportunity exceeding 100 billion Kenya shillings if domestic production had been given priority before this duty-free window was open. Even though state sugar mills have been leased to private sector players associated with William Ruto, their principal business model is to import sugar instead of purchasing locally grown sugar from farmers. This has left 320,000 small-scale sugarcane farmers now facing an uncertain future. The targeted turning of 2 million poor farmers from food deficit to surplus producers using input finance and agricultural extension support. To date, show me one farmer in Kenya who can come forward as a testimonial. Instead, this farmer has nothing. In fact, small-scale farmers in Mwea and Ahero are currently in court trying to salvage their crop after government gazetted the importation of 490,000 metric tons of rice for importation. Tea farmers are crying. A 0.8% levy has been introduced and this year's bonus will reduce from 45 Kenya shillings per kilo. Sugarcane farmers in Western Nyanza and Kisii, the government is unable to pay 270 million owed to them. Cane per ton has reduced from 6,500 to 5,000. Dairy farmers who have supplied milk to new KCC have not been paid for 6 months. It is further alarming that the National Agricultural Value Chain Development Program allocation dropped by 54% to 54% from 10.2 billion Kenya shillings in 2025-2026 financial year to 4.7 billion Kenya shillings in 2026-2027 financial year. This is a direct assault on the agricultural value chain in Kenya. As Deputy President, I initiated progressive reforms in the agricultural sector that increase returns for tea, coffee, dairy, and other cash crops. Through my efforts, we negotiated an 8 billion debt waiver for coffee farmers that was suspended as soon as I left office. More can and more will be done once we form government on August 10 next year. Patriotic Kenyans, William Ruto pledged affordable credit and working capital through an accommodative financial ecosystem, removing structural exploitation and removing barriers to unsecured agricultural credit. To date, the Agricultural Finance Corporation is underfunded. It has a demand of 15 billion Kenya shillings per year from farmers, but the promise to fund it by 10 billion Kenya shillings per year was a hoax. Instead, those who borrowed are being auctioned. Dear Kenyans, William Ruto pledged to revive collapsed cooperative factories and processing plants such as sugar and dairy sectors and guaranteed minimum returns for farm products. Show me any revived sugar factory. Instead, they have been sold, and they have been bought by Ruto and cronies. Where is the cashew nut factory you promised in the coast? Where is the value addition centers you promised in 47 counties? Where are the county industrial and aggregation parks you promised? Where is the state-of-the-art slaughterhouse you promised at Bachuma for animals in northern Kenya? Where is the nitrogen fertilizer factory you launched in Naivasha? Where is the marble factory you launched in Vihiga? On value chain investments, he designated a specific capital infusion, including 250 billion for tea value chain, and expanded the investments in dairy farming and coffee cherry funds. Where are these funds? Nowhere. On blue economy and fisheries, funding for fisheries and the blue economy decreased by 30% from Kenya shillings 11.15 billion to Kenya shillings 7.83 billion. Livestock sector allocations of livestock fell by 14% from Kenya shillings 13.6 billion to 11.6 billion. On eradication of hunger and improved food security, the country was promised prosperity by Ruto. Unfortunately, the number of undernourished people in Kenya increased from 10.1 million in 2004-2006 to 19.7 million in 2023-2025. It is more troubling when you look at the costs of a typical household food basket. A food basket is estimated to have risen from Kenya shillings 15,000 in 2022 to over 19,000 shillings today, an increase of more than 26%. Essential commodities such as electricity, chicken, beef, sugar, kerosene, bread, and milk have all become significantly more expensive here in Kenya over the last 4 years. Patriotic Kenyans, 4 years ago, this government promised the people of Kenya dams and water. 50 mega dams across the country were promised. 200 medium-sized dams across the country were promised. 1,000 small dams were to be constructed across the country. These dams included High Grad Force Dam along the Tana and Mutonga rivers to South Kitui, Tharaka Nithi, and Embu counties. Soin Koru Dam in Kisumu, Rumuruti Dam in Laikipia, Mohoya Dam in Nyeri, Kirinyaga, Revival of Arol and Kimorel Dams, Thakwe Dam, Sioi Muruni Dam in West Pokot, Badasa Dam in Marsabit, Darugo in Kiambu, Rale in Kilifi, Galana in Tana River, Kokwanyo Dam in Homa Bay, Lowat in Turkana, Makamini in Kwale, among others. Unfortunately, all we see, no dam. All we see is our president visiting other countries like Ethiopia to witness the launching of their dams. Where are these dams, Mr. William Ruto, in 4 years? On matters of environment, this administration had committed to grow 15 billion trees by the year 2032. What we are witnessing is the lifting of the logging ban and the systematic logging in national forests under the cover of the Kenya Forest Service. Numerous court cases have been filed by international conservation groups Greenbelt and the Law Society of Kenya against the government's attempt to build infrastructure in protected natural habitats. Talanta Stadium and Bomas Conference Center Link Road that will see over 100 acres of forest destroyed. Upper Imenti Forest in Meru is being cleared for the construction of a state lodge, a golf course, and an airstrip, which will excise and clear 200 acres of forest. Where was this promise? Even the trees at the gate of State House have been cut. Is this still part of the growing 15 billion trees? Patriotic Kenyans, in foreign affairs, we had the worst since independence. Kenya's nose is poked everywhere, including the war in Ukraine and Russia, where our young men are lied to that there are jobs, well-paying for that matter, but they find themselves in the war front. Reports indicate that we have lost 19 Kenyans, including Clinton Nyapara, Dennis Bagaka, Erastus Mundia, Simeon Wahome, Eric Mwangi, Ronald Kibet, Shadrach Wafula, Othiabo Martin, Ibrahim Yahaya, among others. Several other Kenyans in their hundreds remain unaccounted for, and hundreds of others are still active in the war zone. Their parents are keen at home, still crying to see their loved ones back home. A person who was in Kenya in 2022 would wonder whether the Kenya Kwanza commitment to a creative and robust foreign policy whose pillars will be economic and commercial diplomacy changed into converting our young Kenyans into war fugitives in far countries. As if that is not enough, the footprints of Kenya adversary in DRC Congo war zone and M23, Sudan's Darfur, Southern Sudan, among others. He had promised to enhance and promote further local investment by Kenyans living in the diaspora. In Mandera County, Jubaland forces have taken over more than half of the town, and William Ruto signed a secret deal with the Al-Shabaab in 2024 that has remained silent. Notably, in July 2026, there were a record 9 terror attacks in Mandera County that resulted in the killing of 5 Special Operation Group SOG officers and 1 National Police Reservist was killed. The foreign policy has been transformed into a tool to achieve personal gains at the interests of the people of Kenya. Fellow Kenyans, now let us move in and ask Mr. William Ruto the hard questions he deserves. But before that, let me give credit where it is due. There is one promise Mr. William Ruto made to the people of Kenya, and he has delivered 100%. Congratulations, Mr. President. Mr. Ruto, you promised to permanently retire the late Prime Minister, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, in Bondo and finish ODM. You have succeeded in both. Odinga is permanently retired in Bondo and ODM is no more. There are many prominent deaths that have occurred in Kenya and they have not been resolved. Kenyans want to know what happened to Raila Odinga. Why were the medical doctors of the late Prime Minister denied access to him at the last hours? Why did he have doctors from Nairobi West Hospital, a hospital closely associated with William Ruto, than his own doctors? Why were the instructions of Raila's doctor ignored that Raila shouldn't travel? Raila Odinga was a respecter of Luo traditions and custom. How could a person known respecter of Luo traditions and customs indicate that he should be buried in 72 hours against all known Luo traditions and customs? Was William Ruto anywhere an executor of Raila Odinga's will? Why was there no postmortem done on the body of Raila Odinga? Why was he forced to go to India through a private jet? Why did the president force Raila Odinga to go to India? Why was his party ODM taken over before his body arrived in the country, despite the known African customs that you don't inherit a man or a woman for that matter before they are buried? Who are these doctors who accompanied Raila Odinga against the wishes of his personal doctor, Professor David Olucholunya? These are hard questions that Kenyans want to know. On the death of Honorable John Ngeno, the late MP for Emurua Dikil, for the first time, Kenyans must know what happened. I have intelligence information as follows. On the fateful day after Ngeno was dropped at Edebes, the helicopter went to fuel in Eldoret. The pilot didn't know the fuel he was about to put in had been transported to the scene from Lodwar. High alert Kenya revenue officials noticed an unusual car that had carried the jet fuel. It was arrested and the driver questioned. The driver refuted to them that he transported the fuel from Lodwar. Immediately, this KRA official and the police Eldoret Airstream were instructed from Nairobi to release the driver if they cared about their lives. Is it this fuel that caused the chopper not to pick up in high altitudes? Is that why the pilot first came down and tried again to pick up? These are fundamental questions. What did Kipchumba Murkomen know about the people who called this KRA officer and the police at Eldoret Airstream officials? Can KEA produce the CCTV footage at the facility on this fateful date? We are still waiting for a report on what killed Johanna Ngeno. We must not forget about our gallant General Francis Ogola, the decorated top gun who had a stellar 40-year career in the military and perished in 2024 in an air crash. Unfortunately, to date, Mr. William Ruto, the Commander-in-Chief, has failed to release the aircraft accident investigation report to the country. Kenyans are demanding for answers. General Ogola was not an ordinary citizen. He died in active duty and service to the nation. Mr. William Ruto, what do you know about General Francis Ogola's death? Are you willing to tell the country why you allowed General Francis Ogola to fly in a Bell Hue helicopter with a questionable mechanical status? The DPP must use its powers and establish an inquest on these unresolved murders over the last 4 years. The people of Kenya have told me to demand on their behalf a public inquest on the death of Raila Odinga and all the high-profile questionable deaths in Kenya that have occurred in the last 4 years of William Ruto's presidency. I therefore call for a public inquest and proper scrutiny of the same. Today, after examining major commitment against this evidence, after examining every major commitment against this evidence, the verdict is unmistakable. The plan has failed. It is hollow and deceptive. In conclusion, when the plan failed, Kenyans were told that the answer lay in ADCO. It too has failed to deliver the hope, unity, and reforms that were promised. Thereafter came the 10-point agenda, presented as a renewed roadmap to rescue the country. It has equally failed to change the trajectory of our nation. In failing the plan, the administration has failed to keep Kenya on the development path envisioned under Kenya Vision 2030. The question before the people of Kenya is therefore simple. If the author of the plan could not deliver the plan, if NADCO has failed to provide solutions, if the 10-point agenda has failed to change the country's direction, what reason do Kenyans have to expect a different outcome after 2027? You have all heard William Ruto constantly accusing the opposition of having no plan. I ask Kenyans instead to look at his track record. He came up with a bottom-up economic plan. As we have seen, it has failed. He came up with NADCO. He has failed to deliver. He came up with the 10-point agenda. He has failed to deliver. He came up with the Singapore. It has failed. And now, before he has honored a single promise and his commitments, he is now asking us to believe and trust him to come up with another plan. Vision 2060, or the way he is calling, Beyond Vision 2030. Plan after plan, promise after promise, each one designed to distract from the fact that there has been no implementation of the last. From bottom up to Singapore, to Vision 2060 or Beyond Vision 2030, William Ruto has mastered the language of plans. Whenever he is asked to account for what he has actually done, because he has no answer, he simply points to the next horizon. The harsh truth is he does not have the capacity to deliver. You cannot fail today and ask us to trust you tomorrow for some distant, far future engagement. Based on your performance, Kenyans don't want to hear about Vision 2030 or Beyond 2030. They want to know one thing. What will you deliver in the 364 days between today and the next election? Of all the promises you have already made, which ones can we expect you to keep? That will be your marking scheme 1 year from today. And Kenyans are doing you a favor. They are letting you set that marking scheme yourself. They are not making their own demands. They are just using your own commitments as the standard. So when the day comes, you should have nothing to complain about. Leadership is judged by results, not by promises. Governments earn another term through performance, not through visions and persuasion. That is why millions of Kenyans are saying one term. One term is not a slogan of anger. It is a verdict on performance. It is a democratic conclusion that one term has been enough because the promises made have not been kept. Exactly 1 year from today, on 10th August 2027, we shall go to the polls as a nation. Let us choose accountability over excuses, delivery over promises, and leadership that honors its covenant with the people. As Mr. William Ruto launches his deceptive 2060 plan tomorrow, I want to tell the people of Kenya that it is a lie, it is a con, it is a fraud, it is deceit. I urge all Kenyans from across the country to join in the liberation struggle that kickstarts his 364-day action plan to restore the dignity of our beloved motherland. As William Ruto launches his lie and deception tomorrow, I lead the people of Kenya in launching today a 364-day action plan to restore the dignity of our beloved motherland, Kenya. May God bless you. May God bless the Republic of Kenya. Thank you. Asanteni sana. Thank you.